The years following the Declaration of Independence nurtured a new breed of community in a world of confusion. Repudiating precedent and usage dominating old world states which had evolved slowly, painfully, and planlessly from preceding things, these Americans, for history's first time, planned and made a nation. And then in New York City on April 30th, 1789, they named a leader to complete the structure on the foundation of that new nation's fundamental law. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Gentlemen, before we get to business, we have the pleasure, perhaps mixed with sadness, of saying hail and farewell to one who deserves all the affection and respect of his country.
Well, that description can fit only one man.
Dr. Benjamin Franklin.
Mr. President.
We should have preferred going to you, Dr. Franklin, to pay our respects.
Not so. I deemed it more fitting the shoe be on the other foot. General Knox, I've seen the day when your buff and blue was blood-blotched. That John Adams might become the first vice president of these United States. And you, James Madison, our children's children will remember you. And you, Alex Hamilton. And you, John Jay. And you, Mr. Randolph. Tomorrow I leave for Philadelphia, where in my daughter's house I shall spend such time as allotted me beyond my present 83 years.
Those have been eventful years, Dr. Franklin.
I have watched that Constitution growing like a tree from first the sprout planted by Samuel Adams and his correspondence committees, and then the united action of the Association of 1774.
In the history of this nation, there is deserved an honorable page for that association.
That was the trunk. And those articles were the trunk's first branches, and then the branches lifted up and spread into a sturdy tree of liberty with shade enough for all. And the first sprout from the seed sown by our ancestors and nurtured by their blood.
Dr. Franklin, that such a Bill of Rights was not included in our Constitution through deliberate design.
And they will, most likely, next stir up suspicion. And accusation will follow close upon suspicion. The proofs, of course, to be collected in some future time. Some individuals to see instances of guilt where there is at most only honest error.
You, Dr. Franklin, perfectly describe those who claim that during ratification's debate, the Constitution's sponsors proceeded on the theory that the means justify the ends.
The true measure of any action is the sentiment from which it springs. The quality of means determines the ethics of ends. Honesty will justify our means, and history will, I trust, applaud our ends. Gentlemen, men were never before called upon to perform duties of such responsibility as those confronting you. And you, sir, begin a task which some wise men predict cannot successfully be accomplished. And every aspiring absolute ruler prays that you will fail.
I am of the opinion that there are other men more competent than I to complete this task.
I am too old for a bad example, so I may give advice. To you, sir, more than any man, this nation owes its freedom. And to you, sir, more than any man, the people give both affection and confidence. How can you fail?
If the government we organize under the People's Constitution survives the next 20 years, it may go on forever.
My friend, it will survive. And in times of future tribulation, may no American forget that his liberty thrives on the principle that all men are created equal. Gentlemen, goodbye, and good luck to you.
With orderly efficiency, the first government was formed. John Jay became the first Chief Justice, and by general accord, Madison became leader of the House. Then a cabinet of secretaries, rather than ministers, was appointed. Hamilton, Treasury; Knox, War; Randolph, Attorney General; Jefferson, Foreign Affairs. Thomas Jefferson's duties in France will keep this chair vacant, I fear, for months.
The seeds of liberty, scattering from here, take root in Europe. The people mutter, and established systems wish us nothing but disaster. From Paris, Jefferson expresses the sophistry of a dying order. The Americans declare that all men are created equal, with unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is evident that these are very questionable statements. Men are not born equal. Men are not born free. These statements are so manifestly false that it is impossible to believe that the men who made them believed in them.
Such truths are beyond the understanding of minds lacking imagination, and must, perforce, be denied by designing dictation. We declare that unhampered intellect is the natural state decreed by man's creator. They oppose a most unnatural state, a hampering social net decreed by man's stupidity.
A net which may enmesh but cannot stifle fundamental truths which confound archaic systems that degrade the individual in exaltation of the state.
From those truths springs the American concept of liberty, motivating every article in the Constitution, which I have sworn to defend, and which your able pen so well defended in the argument of ratification. I think the world suspects that these widely translated treatises on civil government, credited to Publius, would better read by Hamilton, Madison, and Jay.
To some, our pens still seem to lack conviction. Their rambling oratory demands that the Constitution's preamble be changed to read, not we the people, but we the states.
I am sure that to a majority of our people, that question has already lost much of its significance. And if a Bill of Rights be, without delay, adopted, it will have no significance at all.
Mr. Madison, the Constitution is itself, to every useful purpose, a Bill of Rights.
Right.
There was not a delegate, you'll agree, at the Constitutional Convention who had the least objection to what is asked now by advocates of the Bill of Rights. Where the people evidently retained in the Constitution everything they did not in express terms give up, a Bill of Rights was considered without meaning. And it was only the difficulty in fixing a mode that would not interfere with the fixed mode of any state that induced the convention to leave, for example, the jury clause for future adjustment.
And because of the judiciary's power to hold infracting laws unconstitutional, our people know their rights can be enforced.
Mr. Jay, there is a widespread conviction that there should be a statement of such rights to serve as a sure basis for court decisions when determining infracting laws. Sirs, That conviction stems from the English Revolution of 1688 and their Bill of Rights of the following year. Its roots are in our inheritance of British tradition, and during the Virginia Conventions of Ratification, I promised that by quick amendment in the Constitution our presumptive rights would become actual. Now, sirs, it is whispered that I have done nothing to redeem my promise.
Never did a people so thoroughly discuss contemplated legislation as was this document discussed. This is our fundamental law. Hasty judgment or pandering to politics must not change it.
Mr. Randolph, with various members of the House, I have studied upward of 70 proposed amendments to our Constitution submitted by the various states. And from the 70, we have culled 20 which merit prompt attention. It is significant that none of these contemplates changing a single vital article.
That is good news. I had a notion, James, that perhaps disgruntled minorities, like yours in Virginia, had swayed majorities to substitute we the states for we the...
James, posterity may, in justice too, in discussing our Constitution, call you the father of it. Therein, Congress is commanded to make laws necessary to carry into execution the great powers granted it, and all other powers vested in government by the document you fostered. That great task confronts us. This is no time for consideration of amendments from the very states which ratified a document commanding us to do these things.
And the President's stupendous task of organization requires the full support of Senate and House, leaving no time now for consideration of amendments, which by the great majority are considered inconsequential.
Mr. President, a respectable minority will consider themselves foully dealt with if promises made in other states, similar to those I made in Virginia, are ignored until next session.
Mr. Randolph's majority and your respectable minority constitute the sovereign people of the United States. They alone may enumerate their rights and reserve them to either states or people. But combined with our faith in democratic government must be the realization that a popular majority may become as tyrannical as any absolute monarchy. Nothing will so destroy confidence in free government as a disregard, after the event, of campaign pledges. I believe that all promises made during the campaign for ratification should be kept.
With your support, sir, I am certain that amendments safeguarding our fundamental rights will be recommended by this Congress for ratification by the states.
You may count on me, Mr. Madison.
And on me in the Senate.
And on us too.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, gentlemen. Our honest response to the minority demand will encourage among the people who founded this government a real bond of mutual goodwill, as binding as the more formal ties of law.
Everyone will come to acknowledge James Madison's greatness. Of the affairs of the United States, he perhaps has the most correct knowledge of any man in the Union. Then one day in August, the joint committees of the Congress listened to James Madison.
Gentlemen, President Washington views the nation he has all but fathered as something apart from and superior to himself and any man in it. And so it is. This nation demands and deserves a high measure of devotion. But, sirs, What sort of devotion is that which would besmirch her honor? In her name, promises have been made which must be kept before this session of the Congress adjourns. There are now but 12 amendments to our Constitution which require your approval for recommendation to the states. Expressed originally in many more, they represent the honoring of pledges made not to disgruntled factions advocating revision of our fundamental law, but to patriotic Americans who made that law effective and desire now its strengthening. You have, by helping form this unique government, done a duty which history will applaud. You are the authors of the laws upon which our happiness. Mr. President, I have the honor to present for your appraisal 12 amendments to our Constitution recommended by this Congress. The first 10 clarify the issue of our fundamental rights.
For which, James, you deserve full credit.
Sir, this Congress has performed a crucial duty, nobly and well, and have more than succeeded, where failure was too freely predicted.
Mr. President, I have been asked to read to you a resolution of the Congress, unanimously adopted in joint session, in acknowledgement of the signal favors of the Almighty, in permitting our people to establish in peace a new government, be it resolved that the President of the United States be requested to recommend a day of public thanksgiving and prayer to be observed by all the people of the nation.
It is altogether fitting this be done. On September 29th, 1789, the first Congress adjourned, and with ratification by the states, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution became part of the supreme law of the land. The first affirms freedom of religion, speech, and press, and the right of peaceful assembly and petition. The second, the right of states to maintain militia, and the people to keep and bear arms for their security. The third prohibits arbitrary quartering of troops upon citizens, either during peace or war. The fourth guarantees the people's right to be secure in their persons, preventing arbitrary searches and seizures. The fifth protects life, liberty, and property from arbitrary acts, and formulates the legal procedure against those accused of serious crime, designating indictment only by grand jury. The sixth affirms the rights of those accused of crime, establishing trial by impartial jury of the vicinity, the public presentation of evidence, and the guarantee of counsel. The seventh guarantees the right of trial by jury in suits at common law. The eighth prohibits excessive bail and cruel punishment. The ninth affirms that presumptive rights not enumerated in the Constitution are retained still by the people. And the 10th declares powers are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Already these 10 amending articles are, by popular accord, declared the nation's Bill of Rights.
That Bill of Rights refutes the libel of unfriendly critics who jeered that our Constitution required quick revision.
There has been no revision. These amendments supplement the Constitution. They do not change it.
Of course. And as the people of all the states did ordain and establish the Constitution, legally and politically it may be said that the United States is, rather than the United States are, a nation. Well, a free government has been made for you, if you can keep it so.